Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching second part of What If Naruto Was Sealed for a Millennia. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
It's crazy how everything feels like it's come full circle. Huh? Searsex asked Naruto while he was eating breakfast with the boy and looking out the window at some animals. Naruto couldn't help but smile as he saw a dog chase a cat up a tree. First there were dinosaurs, then there were gods, and then people and animals were made. During my time, there were a lot of the same animals here. Then they all went away, but now they're all back. Even words have gotten better. As he leaned forward, Naruto said. Even though he was done eating, he was still thinking about how great everything was. When I looked at the timeline from the outside, it all made more sense. At first, Searsex wasn't sure what was going on, but then he got it. So gods existed in your time, too? They weren't the same. Kurama told me that my clan, the Uzumaki, had taken gods as slaves and tied them to masks. Those masks are broken, and the gods who were tied to them are probably all dead. Then there were dinosaurs. Then they went extinct. Then the gods came back and made humans and everything else again. Even though a lot had changed, Naruto liked that there were still a lot of things about this time that were the same as his time. Only, you don't have a lot of big animals all over the place. With a small smile on his face, Naruto said so. He learned about his clan millions and millions of years after his species went extinct, so it was one of the things he remembered best about his own life. Oh? Yes, where I grew up, there were a lot of animals that got really big. I think I killed a spider that was 100 feet long, but it might have been a centipede or something else. It was a big bug, but I can't remember what it was. As he looked out, Naruto laughed. Searsex felt cold. A bug that big sounded really scary. I guess that explains why humans in your time got so strong. Were humans the most common species in your time? Searsex asked this because he couldn't see normal people taking over in a world with giant animals. He knew that humans could get stronger because chakra made people stronger in his friend's time, but it was still hard to believe. Naruto nodded his head. Yeah, and what's funny is that not all strong people were ninjas. I think they were samurai, and they lived in a country that could match the ninja. At least, I don't remember much about that. So, how are things in your country? Naruto asked because he didn't know much about the culture he was joining. Searsex seemed to think about what he asked. Well, there are different groups and different gods. Were you religious when you were alive? Searsex asked Naruto, his eyebrows raised. Naruto gave a headshake. I thought there were gods, but I didn't care that much about them. We believed in the Pure Land, I guess, and also heaven and hell, but most shinobi believed in the idea of the Pure Land. Since you're demons, I guess you're the bad guys? When Naruto asked that, he had a smile on his face. Searsex nodded. Technically, we are and we aren't, and our values are different. We like things that make people bad, like greed, pride, lust, and envy. We follow our desires more strongly than our angel counterparts, but unlike our fallen angel enemies, we are also bound by contracts. Searsex talked to Naruto as he pulled out his phone and showed it to him. Naruto had no idea what was going on, but he listened. Searsex opened an app on his phone and showed Naruto what it did. Cool. That's something I've never seen. It's an app that checks the value of a person's soul. When a person signs a contract with us, we get paid based on how much their soul is worth in relation to their wish. In the past, we just took souls, but now we can only take souls if the person agrees that their soul is worth their wish. Searsex said as he scanned Naruto's face with the phone. I can't grant you a wish that would be worth your life. Searsex told Naruto what was going on. Deadpan look. What? That means you could pretty much wish for anything, but my app can't figure out a wish that would be worth as much as your soul. Your soul is an old person with a lot of power. You have a soul that is truly unique. We used to just send human souls to hell, but now we use contracts with humans to impress other devils and move up in our own ranks. Our society isn't the bad guy anymore, but there are still many people in it who are just as bad as they were back in the day. Searsex couldn't deny that his kind had many cruel and evil people who liked the old ways and the idea of going back to them. Naruto put his head back. If you punish bad people, doesn't that make you good people? Not when we corrupt those good souls, but that's what I fought so hard to change. I fight for peace between the different species, and I want to stop taking people's souls. I think life is valuable in the end. Searzex told Naruto what was on his mind. Naruto was the kind of person who made you want to be honest with him, so Searzex could see why he went to so many therapists. So, if you're demons and there are angels, I guess I get how things work. Peace and fighting for peace. If your values are different from those of the people you want peace with, it's hard to understand each other. Naruto spoke as he tried to think of a way for these two kinds of people to get along. He had nothing to say. The angels value moderation, holding back your desires, and thinking about the greater good and how you can sacrifice yourself for it. We don't agree with the values of their society, and I don't blame them for that. Their values are what make them great. After all, I also care about those things. Searzex was faithful to his wife, who was the only one he had. Other people of his species, on the other hand, had many wives. He was always trying to make the world a better place for all species, not just his own. After all, he was just different from most of his kind. It's okay to be selfish, but there are times and places when you shouldn't be. I don't see a problem with your side or their side. You could both learn from each other. No, we can't. We get stronger by giving in to our wants, and if they stop being moderate, they fall and become fallen angels. We get our power from our values, but our natures are often at odds with each other. This makes it hard to find peace. It's kind of why I got my people to worship your statue by tricking them. Searzex said this with a small, teasing smile on his face. It was part of his plan. Everyone in the world, including humans, knew about the big mysterious statue that had been there since the beginning of time. It was written down in history books, and it was remembered as a lost wonder from the past. Since there were paintings of Naruto's statue form, it was easy for him to convince his people that Naruto was a sealed demon god from before humans existed. That he was a demon who gave life and was cursed and sealed because he had a good heart. He got stronger and became a god. He used tricks to try to change the nature of his people for the better, but in the end, people started to make up their own ideas and go against the goals he had set for them. Didn't work out though. It didn't work at all like I thought it would. You became a part of our culture, and now that you're back, I'm getting a lot of bad feedback. Searzex had to admit that the lie he told was coming back to hurt him. Half of the people wanted Naruto to be their only leader, while the other half thought that the fact that he was human and not a demon showed that they had been lied to. Let's just say that people have noticed that you came back to life, and I'm trying to help you live a normal life if I can. Searzex talked with a sad smile on his face. He would do his best because he didn't want Naruto to have to suffer by being forced to live a life he didn't want. Not when he had no choice, so he would have to deal with the consequences on his own. Cool, thanks. But why are you trying to get me to date your sister? With an eyebrow raised, Naruto asked the man. A legit question. I think the two of you would look good together. That's all. Searzex said more when he saw how Naruto looked, which made him laugh. You really are a great guy. As soon as I saw you hundreds of years ago, I knew we would get along. I think people like you are the only ones who could treat her with love, and who could do it better than you. You. Searzex pointed right in the middle of Naruto's chest. Cool. That's all. Is that cool? There's not much I can say about that. She's a nice girl, and I don't have much else to say. Now, I want to know the most important thing. When can I leave? Kurama, I'm asking you that right now. Naruto turned around and talked to Kurama in his head. Sorry, Kurama was. Oh, you're right. So when can I go to the human realm? Naruto leaned forward and asked. Searzex did the same thing. Once we get you legal papers and teach you how to behave in human society, tell me, since you're faster than a train, how would you get from one city to another? Searzex asked Naruto a real question. I would run and jump from building to building. No, you can't do that. Normal humans don't know about things like that anymore, so we can't have a superpowered person running around, jumping off buildings, and making trouble. I want to tell you about modern human culture so you won't be surprised by what you see. Searzex could imagine how shocking it would be for Naruto to see all of this stuff from our time. Naruto said, full circle. But the people in Naruto's world made technology to meet their needs, which were different because they were all superhumans. They didn't seem to have developed the need for a lot of the modern technology that people depend on so much these days. If they wanted to go from one country to another, all they had to do was run. If they wanted to send a message, they would train a ninja bird to carry it. Fucking bird ninjas. He was afraid that Naruto would have a bad reaction to modern technology, so he wanted to tell Naruto about some of the strange things before he let him take the train to the human world. Also? Are you sure we haven't been best friends for years? You know me too well to be a new friend. Searzex could tell that Naruto had found out what he was hiding. Magic ninja. Touché. There was a prophecy about you when I got you, and I want you down here so I can rub it in my friend's face. I thought the prophecy was true, but he didn't. I've made sure he doesn't know you woke up because I want to play a really mean joke on him. Searzex spoke while he was grinning. Naruto smiled and leaned forward. A prank, you say? He says it's a joke, but he doesn't know that his parents told me you woke up. Ajuka, nice to meet you, Naruto. Do you mind if I check your health? As he came up behind them, Ajuka asked, and he put a cold soda on the back of Searzex's neck. Cold. Wow, you're not very entertaining. Why do you want to test me? Naruto asked with his arms crossed and his head tilted. Your biology is different from that of humans today, so it's safe to say that you aren't human by today's standards. What if you had a baby with a human? Would the baby be a human like you or like them, or would it be a mix? What would your DNA look like if it was mixed with ours? If you had a baby with a devil, would the baby be a ninja with devil powers or a devil with ninja powers? You're a genetic mystery. Where did he go? Ajuka asked as he looked at Naruto. Instead of Naruto sitting in his chair, there was a log where Naruto should have been. He had no idea how the log got there. Most people would run away if that's how you introduced yourself. Searzex brought this up. How did he do that, too? Searzex had no idea how Naruto did what he just did. When Naruto disappeared, he didn't even notice until it was too late. Ajuka and Searzex got up and left. They had to look for Naruto. Poof. Naruto was back on the log. Turn into something else technique, temporary name. Good thing I remembered this. No medical tests for this guy. Naruto stopped trying to look like a log and got up. He stretched his back muscles, then grinned, put his hands in his pockets, and walked away in the opposite direction. That Ajuka guy seems nice, but I don't understand any of that science stuff. With a grin, Naruto made fun of himself. He didn't know much about medicine or science. He knew how to hit things until they either worked or broke. He also seemed to be a very good therapist. His neck can be broken. Really, Kurama, do you have to act like such a jerk? Naruto asked as he turned around to find the voice that kept trying to get him to do bad things. When he was by himself, the voice was the loudest. We can be alone again, just the two of us. Forever. I don't want to do that. Just you and me, but first you have to kill everyone. Thanks for taking care of Naruto while we worked. It looks like he likes you a lot. Searzex said as he and his wife walked into the room and saw their son sleeping on Naruto's lap. Naruto smiled and waved at Searzex. He's a great kid, and he's really smart. Naruto took the child in his arms and gave him to his parents. Before he could go back to the human world, he had to do some studying, and then he met with Cyraorg for more therapy. The therapist analyzed him again. You could easily kill them all by breaking their necks, snapping their spines, or cutting their vital organs. Oh, thank God fake Kurama is finally starting to shut up. Even though Kurama's voice sounded a lot like Naruto's, he could hear it getting quieter. Searzex was used to Naruto talking to a fake version of Kurama, so he didn't think much of it. Grafia, on the other hand, gave Naruto a look that was a little bit worried. Hearing voices you knew didn't exist was never a sign that your mind was in good shape. Okay, so fake Kurama doesn't like to talk when there are a lot of people around. I guess he's shy, right? Searzex made fun of the voice in Naruto's head. Naruto was happy. Yeah, haha. Naruto just laughed at them. He couldn't see the voice when he looked behind him, but it sounded so real. Like someone was right behind him and talking to him. Almost nothing about the voice sounded like Kurama's voice. Instead, it sounded like a distorted version of his own voice. But Kurama was always about spreading the message of blood and murder. Searzex was on the ground and his head had been cut off. Grafia's back was broken and curved backwards. The man's throat was cut open. When he gets upset that I'm not listening to him, he likes to show me things, but if I ignore him enough, he takes a break. The vision Naruto saw made him laugh. Everything in the room went back to how it was before. Searzex was fine, and he was holding his fine son, and his wife was fine, too. Nobody was dead. Naruto goes to therapy. You have a chance, rip out his heart. Naruto saw that Cyraorg's chest was wide open after he blocked a blow, and it would have been very easy for him to just use a little chakra to cut a hole right to his heart. He had trained for it and knew how to use his wind chakra. It would be one of the easiest things in the world to do. Naruto hit Cyraorg in the face with a punch. Ha ha ha, good hit. Cyraorg yelled with a grin on his face. That blow was going to make his cheek swell up and get bruised. Still, he moved forward, only to realize that something was touching his back. Behind him, another Naruto had a knife at the base of his neck. Naruto's clone dropped the knife with a smile, and when the real Naruto punched Cyraorg in the cheek for the second time, the clone popped away. Same cheek, and the blow sent Cyraorg flying back. Sorry about that, but I had to see if my stealth skills were still up to par. No harm done, right? Naruto asked as he put out a hand to help Cyraorg get back up. Cyraorg just laughed. I didn't even feel that, clone. I guess that's the difference between training in real life and death situations. I thought I was going to die for a second there. When he felt the knife touch his neck, Cyraorg laughed off the way he felt. Even though it was only for a second, he was sure that he could have died at that moment. A knife was stuck in Cyraorg's back. No, it was just a distraction, but I guess sparring with clones isn't really fair. Naruto thought aloud. Right, clones had his mind too, so it was possible that fake Kurama's whispers could affect them the same way they affected him. When fake Kurama was being really annoying, it would be better if he didn't make clones. He wasn't sure if he could stop the clones from listening to those tempting whispers. Ha ha ha. I'm a broken man mentally, and I guess I need to be fixed badly. Naruto laughed at how things were going for him. What could he do else? He had no choice but to go through what was happening to him alone, because he couldn't really talk to anyone about what was really bothering him until the voice stopped and fake Kurama was out of his life. Cyraorg cracked up. Yeah, right. You're not broken, you just need to get your memories back. I'm here to help you out in that situation. So, when are you going out with Rias? As Naruto and Cyraorg left the training area in pieces, as they always did, Cyraorg asked Naruto. They had been sparring for more than 3 weeks, and after each session, he needed to heal so he could come back for more sparring the next session. He sparred with Naruto 3 times a week for 3 weeks, and he loved how much fun it was. Even though it was therapy for Naruto, he had a good time, which made it worth going out of his way for. The lady in charge of my therapy told me I have 2 more sessions, and then I just have to wait for Cirzex to finish enrolling me in Kuo. I hated school when I was younger, but it will be nice to hang out with people my age. And see what life is like in the real world. If I can help it, I really want to stay away from fights and drama. Naruto made himself laugh. Yes, a life as a civilian with as few problems as possible. That was exactly what he needed to get his life back on track and get over what had happened. He would still train and get stronger because that was who he was, but if he could, he would really like to live a nice, quiet life. Right, you were stoned to death when you were 16. So you would be in the year under Rias. Did you hear that Rias just last week made the boy with the boosted gear appear? Cyraorg said this with a smile. The word was getting around. What kind of gear? Boosted gear lets the user double their power every 10 seconds. She also added a new bishop to her peerage, but she isn't very special, so she's just a side note to the boosted gear. Cyraorg wants to fight the boy who has the sacred equipment. It was fun to fight Naruto, but he had been losing for 3 weeks and didn't see himself winning anytime soon. It would be great to fight someone new so he could see if his fights with Naruto had helped him get better. I guess it sounds fun, but doubling your power would put a lot of stress on your body. I bet that every time your power doubles, the stamina you need to keep it up also doubles. It's a huge double-edged sword. Cyraorg gave Naruto a sharp finger snap. Yes, bingo, boosted gear and divine dividing are limited by the strength and stamina of the person using them. The boosted gear can't double the user's power beyond their absolute limits, and if a divine dividing user takes too much power without releasing it, they break their bodies. What is divine? The sacred gear's rival to the boosted gear. Rival. So it must divide people's strength every 10 seconds. And give to the user? Naruto was pretty sure that was the most logical ability for a rival who could double his own power. Let the person who uses divine divining take your chakra and blow himself up. Since he doesn't have the chakra coils to hold it in, let him blow up. Let him take your senjutsu chakra and turn into a toad statue. Then you can break his statue and make us feel better about hell. I don't need to do any of that, fake Kurama. You're talking a lot today. Naruto noticed that his made-up Kurama was much more outspoken today than he used to be. It could have been a sign that his therapy was helping. Usually, did the symptoms get worse before they started to get better? No, this isn't good enough. It's too simple. Everyone in the clubroom was watching Rias right now as she looked over job requests that had been made for her ahead of time. Issei and Asia had only been devils for about 2 weeks, but they were used to her being calm and sure of herself. Right now, Rias was getting them all ready for something. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to get contracts, Issei said with a sad face. It's okay, just promise to do better. Akeno, have you found any important or high-quality requests? Rias had Akeno look through the requests and sent her familiars out to give their flyers to anyone whose souls seemed to be of high quality. She had to come up with a request that would stand out. One is for entertainment for a club that needs help badly, but the rest aren't that exciting or high-paying. Great. That might work if I don't find anything in here. Today, as a group, we are going to do a contract to impress a man who will be visiting us. He is very important, so I need everyone to do their best and show off their best work to him. Rias had heard from her brother that Naruto was going to come to the human realm to visit them. Since Naruto had never met her, she wanted to show him how cool she could be. This meeting would be important for everyone, and the best way for her to show Naruto how good a leader she was to show him how her peerage could fulfill requests. Issei asked nervously, we haven't been devils for long. Are you sure you can count on us? He hadn't finished any requests yet, but his clients gave him a lot of good reviews even though he failed, and Asia had only done cosplay requests with Kaneko. She hadn't finished a request by herself yet, so she brought along a veteran to help her do her job. Asia turned to Akeno and asked, who is this person? All of her both. Era? Akeno was confused when she saw another Akeno standing next to Asia and giving her a cup of tea instead of herself. When a second Akeno showed up, everyone was confused right away. The only person who wasn't confused was Rias. Rias, who was going through all of her requests and hadn't noticed anything was wrong. Era? I don't know which one is real. Yuto didn't know who was who, even the Era sounded exactly like Akeno's Era. Kaneko looked at the Akeno who was serving tea for a moment before she looked at the Akeno who had just given Rias some request papers. No one had even noticed the second Akeno walk into the room, so no one knew which Akeno was the real one. Both of them said at the same time, I'm the real one. Huh? Rias said when she looked up briefly and saw what was going on. Her cheeks got red, and she quickly stood up. She knew the truth before anyone else. Rias put all of her requests in a neat pile and said, Naruto. She put her hair in place and took off her glasses. Naruto? Akeno asked, are you Naruto? As she pointed at Akeno. Akeno seemed confused and also pointed at Akeno. Both Akenos smiled though, and with a puff of smoke, they were gone. A few seconds later, Naruto and Akeno walked into the room. Naruto was grinning when he saw that everyone was surprised that neither of the Akenos they had been with was the real one. But Akeno didn't know why everyone was surprised, since the other Akenos had left the room before she got there. I went to the train station and got Naruto. When Akeno said his name, Naruto waved and said, hello, everyone. Yuto. Kaneko. And which of you is Issei and Asia? Naruto knew their names, but he didn't know who they were. The girl who looked like a cute kitten was definitely Kaneko, and the boy who was drawing a sword on paper was definitely Yuto. Issei put up his hand in fear. I'm Asia Argento, and it's nice to meet you. Oh, his chakra. For a moment, Kaneko's eyes grew wide. She couldn't feel how deep his chakra went, but she could feel how it took over everything. It was the most alive thing she had ever felt. It was bright and warm. If the sun were a person, this person would be it. Being in his presence was like lying on her back in the grass with a gentle breeze passing over you. Your body lying in the sun, not in the hot, burning sun, but in the sun of spring or fall. It was very hot, but the heat it put out was so gentle and comforting. When Kaneko looked at everyone else, she saw that she was the only one who was reacting to his chakra physically. Wow, you really do have a warm aura. Yuto got up and walked over to Naruto, putting out his hand to shake it. Kaneko got red in the face when she realized that she was the only one who could feel the real qualities of Naruto's energy because she was the only one who had ever felt this kind of energy before. The more time she spent with him, the more she could feel his aura around her. It was scary how comforting she felt when she was near him, because her body didn't bend to her will but did so on its own. She felt her body calm down. Naruto asked with a tilted head, "I do?" Issei, who couldn't sense anything at all, pointed at Naruto and asked, "He does?" He was confused. "You do." Rias wanted to make a good impression on Naruto, so Asia bowed to him when she met him. Rias stood up with a request paper in his hand. She looked over. She gave Naruto a smile. Rias really wanted Naruto to like her peerage, so she tried to impress him. "This seems like a great chance to show you how devils handle requests. My peerage is good at getting contracts and good reviews." She didn't just want him to like her. She also wanted him to have a good impression of everything about her. Among other things, this meant how she told her peers to do their jobs. "Oh, that sounds cool. I'm so nervous. If Bucko wants to impress this guy, it must be because he is a big deal. I've got to do a good job. On the job site. I'm sorry, but this job doesn't need any men." As the client saw the men in the group and waved them away, Issei thought, "I'm a failure." They were in the middle of a fancy, but currently empty, place that seemed to serve alcohol. It had a pretty big stage for performances, and there were tables all over the place. Naruto came in through the front door with a bang. "You left me behind." "Oh, right, you can't use our summoning circle," Rias said. He saw that Naruto had not jumped with them, so he had to run the whole way to get to them. When she put her hand on his shoulder, Issei felt a lot better right away. This guy seemed really strange. As she moved away from Naruto, Rias asked, "So, sir, what are the details of this entertainment? You've put up a pretty big reward for it, so I'm guessing it will be hard to do." She wanted to show him how good she was with clients, and she was sure that he would be impressed by her skills. When the man said he didn't need men, he didn't seem like a pervert, so she was also curious about what the request would be. "Tonight, I have a guest that I need to impress no matter what. He has a lot of connections in the business world, and he has a habit of destroying businesses that don't entertain the guest he brings with him. And it's always a different guest." "Seems like a pretty simple request," Rias said. Impressing a person wasn't hard for him, he could do that with ease. Akeno was good at taking care of these kinds of requests, and Kaneko was the group's cosplay expert. She did so many requests that required her to dress up that she was a natural at it. Everyone seemed to feel better when the request sounded so simple. On the other hand, Naruto smiled. "The problem is the guest that he's bringing, isn't it?" Naruto asked as he leaned forward and saw what was going to happen. Naruto gave his best guess about what was going on. He said, "It's someone who has never been impressed before, and I think your best performers are busy." The client was impressed by what he saw in Naruto. "You got it right away. The guest he's bringing is his own grandfather, who is blind and hasn't been able to walk for years. Nobody's business has survived this man bringing his grandfather," the nervous client said. Everyone had lost the feeling of relief. "Yes. I can see why that would be hard. A performance that isn't musical won't mean much to someone who can't see, and an older man probably doesn't like the same kind of music." Rias could now understand why the reward for finishing was so high. It would be very hard to do what they asked. Naruto had a weird idea suddenly. He had a weird memory flash of a toad changing into a fox as he thought of a way to help Rias. He hadn't done any ninja missions in, well, forever, so he sort of felt like he should help her out. "In 10 hours, he'll be here. I'm sorry, but I don't think we can do a performance like that on such short notice." Rias felt bad that she couldn't show Naruto her skills, but this request was just too much for her to handle. When she looked at Naruto, she saw that he had a smile on his face. Naruto was just smiling, and his eyes went to a costume hanging in a frame on the wall. He then looked around the room. He was looking for information to help him finish the idea that was starting to form in his head. "Oh. I see." Her answer made the client look sad. Naruto grinned. Naruto said, "Actually, I have the perfect idea. I haven't worked in a long time, so Rias, do you mind if I lead this?" She gave him a hand signal. "What can you do to help?" Naruto asked the peerage. "Sure, do any of you know any upbeat, catchy songs? Something you could learn to sing in a couple of hours." Akeno and Asia both shook their heads, and Yuto just shrugged. Issei put his hand to his chin as he thought about the best song he could come up with. A song and a dance. 10 hours isn't enough time. Naruto asked Kaneko, whose eyes were twinkling. It's more than enough time. Do you have an idea? It looked like she had thought of a song that would work for what he needed. You got it? Yes? Backstage, 10 hours later. Okay, girls, put these hats on, Naruto said as he gave Rias, Akeno, Kaneko, and Asia all top hats to wear. They were still wearing their usual clothes, and now everyone looked a little nervous. They had not practiced. Naruto learned the song from Kaneko. He had been listening to it for hours and hours in order to remember it. He would stop and laugh to himself, but he didn't tell any of them what he was planning. Naruto asked the client if he could get the band to learn the song's music instead of just playing it over the speakers. Asia asked, "What are these hats going to do?" Because she didn't understand. Far from clear. None of them had practiced the song or the dance, and none of them knew what was going to happen. Naruto would sometimes stare at them as if he were trying to remember what they looked like, but he never said anything. He seemed like he didn't want to say anything at all. The main room. The client was very scared. He had Issei and Yuto sit at the same table as him, and his own client and grandfather sat across from him. They didn't have to say anything for him to understand that if he didn't do well, this would be a harsh and critical end to his business. Those girls wouldn't have done their best if they didn't. Worse still, the place was packed. The bar was full of people, and every table had someone sitting at it. If this didn't work, everyone would see him crying. When the curtains were open, the lights got darker. Who is that girl? Who is she? A beautiful woman with a killer body walked out on stage before the other 4 girls. She was very pretty, with long blonde hair and blue eyes. She was also dressed as a bunny girl, but instead of just bunny ears, she had a top hat on her head. She looked like a bunny girl because she had 3 whisker marks on each cheek. She was so sexually attractive that when she swayed her hips seductively, everyone could only look at her legs. Wow, those breasts. Are you Naruto? When Yuto saw the marks, he asked, "What are those?" Naruko, who was on stage with Naruto, smiled seductively at the crowd. Naruko thought to herself, "I'm so glad I didn't go to therapy, and thank you, Searsex, for helping me get away," as Kaneko, Akeno, Rias, and Asia walked onto the stage behind her and stood in that order. Even though they didn't look nervous, they were wearing the hats they were told to wear. They aren't. The client was clearly angry when he saw that only one girl on stage was dressed up. "High school girls are the best you've got?" he asked. "I'll admit they're all pretty, but I don't think they'll impress us," his client said. Even though he couldn't see the girls on stage, the grandfather had the same angry look on his face. Naruko put her fingers together and then snapped them. Poof. Rias's outfit blew up in a puff of smoke, and when the smoke cleared, she was wearing a red bunny girl suit with bunny ears instead of a top hat. She wasn't the only one, either. Akeno wore a purple bunny girl suit, Asia wore an orange one, and Kaneko wore a white one. All of their clothes changed at once when Naruko snapped her fingers. The crowd was paying much more attention now. How did they manage to do that? Grandfather said with a frown, "A magic show? You want to impress a blind man with a magic show?" He was even more angry that he couldn't see what was going on. When she snapped her fingers again, the signal to start the music went off. "Jump Up, Superstar" is a song. Here we go, off the rails. Don't you know it's time to raise the sails? It's freedom like you've never seen it before. What's happening to my body? Rias started to feel like dancing, and she wasn't the only one. As Naruko started to sing on stage, the other women in her peerage began to dance with her. Rias saw Naruko go to Kaneko first as she sauntered sexily across the stage. No bags or passes needed. Naruko took off her hat and gave it to Kaneko, but it turned into a bag and then a passport before Naruko took it back and put it on her head again. Akeno jumped off the ground and landed on Naruko's hand. When she walked between them, Rias jumped into her other hand. "Just say the word, and I'll be there in a flash. I tip my hat to you." Rias and Akeno each reached down and took Naruko's hat off again. Then, their bodies moved on their own, and they threw it into the crowd. Grandfather's hat fell right on top of his head. They both backflipped off of Naruto's hands as she bowed to the crowd and showed off just the right amount of cleavage by bending forward. Naruto jumped back to her feet with a pop and a hop, and the other 4 girls slid across the stage to surround her. Oh, we can zoom all the way to the moon. From this big wide crazy world. Naruto jumped away from the girls who were around her, and they put their arms together in a line from tallest to shortest. As Naruto landed at the top of the ramp made by their arms, she began to walk down. Jump in with me. When he got to the bottom, Naruto jumped off the ramp. She then tapped her foot on the ground, and a coin flew out of Akino's bra. Pick up some coins with me, oh yeah. Even though the audience was already enjoying the show, to say that they were glued to the stage as the girls went back to their original spots would be an understatement. On cue, they jumped along with the music. Naruto kept singing as she moved across the stage and down to the ground. It's time to jump up in the air. Jump up and don't be afraid. Jump up and your worries will fly away. And if dark clouds start to gather, don't worry and don't cry. I'll be your one-up girl. Naruto put out her hand and took grandfather's hand. He pulled him out of his wheelchair and jumped up to the stage. The client's client jumped out of his chair in shock, and grandfather yelled out in shock and surprise. Before her feet hit the stage, Naruto snapped her fingers. Poof. Grandfather was wearing a suit, and he was fine when he fell. I can see. The client's client was in shock as tears started to form around the edges of his eyes. So let's all jump really high, way up in the air. Dancing is the best way to get a boost. Flirtatious, each girl on stage went up to the old man, took his hand, and jumped up in the air with him. Then, as Naruto and the old man moved to the center of the stage, they started to dance together, and the old man joined in as well. Naruto just gave him a little tap on the nose and then looked back at the audience. You know you're my rock star, because no one else can get me this far. I'm about to flip the switch, so get ready. Ooh, let's do the Odyssey. I can see. I can dance. The grandfather on stage looked at the crowd with tears in his eyes and then at his grandson. He and his grandson looked at each other for the first time. After the end. Thank you, girls, so much. The client's client showed respect by bowing. Grandpa used to be blind and use a wheelchair, but he was happy. Since he got off the stage and lost his sight again, his face had not stopped being in a smile. He had memories that would stay with him for the rest of his life, and he finally knew what his grandson's face looked like. When they remembered being able to really look into each other's eyes, they were both still crying. Rias was staring at Naruto very hard. Rias was still curious about how Naruto did what he did. He said, "It's no problem. You could say we were barely in charge of our own actions. We just danced on command. How he made a blind man see for a short time and how he made him able to walk. Not to mention that he changed their clothes, which made them unable to move. They all danced together in perfect sync, but none of them could control their bodies at the time." Issei whispered, "Wait, that girl on stage was him?" He was heartbroken when he finally realized that the most alluring woman he had ever seen was actually a man. He felt broken and betrayed. Every move Naruto made on stage was a perfect seduction, as if every look, muscle twitch, and movement was made to show off every part of her body. He had seen that every man's eyes were fixed on the stage, on Naruto, and that several women couldn't take their eyes off the stage. This man was so good at being seductive that few women had ever been as good as he was. Rias nudged Naruto. As the clients started talking to each other, she whispered, "How did you do that?" The make two people one person technique combined with the make more Naruto's technique. What? Asked Rias in surprise. Naruto had shadow clones turn into hats, and when he snapped his fingers, they did the combination transformation with the people wearing the hats, changing their clothes and making them look like different versions of themselves. The old man was dancing and seeing with Naruto's clones' legs and eyes, and Naruto's clones were in charge of what the girl did. He's just an idiot who can't make sense of his own words. Rias really didn't understand what Naruto was talking about when he gave her that bad explanation. That was so much. I'm glad Searsex stole me away from therapy to be here. That, too, was something that had to be explained. The same was true for Searsex. Extremely dangerous? Yes, Naruto is showing the same signs that people with mental illness show when they hear voices. His reaction time is slow, and he seems to react to sounds that only he can hear. This is a very dangerous trait for someone who can kill people so easily. Sears didn't believe a word the therapist said. Naruto was such a nice person that it was almost impossible that something dangerous was hiding behind that smile. No matter what the therapist said, it didn't help. He had a lot of bad things happen to him when he was young. He was a child soldier who was trained to kill people, and his peers hurt him emotionally and beat him up on the battlefield when he was young. Considering everything, the fact that he is so amazingly stable is a miracle. Naruto had been through things that could have made other people kill themselves or kill a lot of people, but he was just fine. Everyone who watched Naruto fight and saw how his eyes would wander to places where he could kill someone knew that was the biggest red flag. He had some dangerous ideas because it was clear that he knew he could kill people but chose not to. The fact that Naruto had no scars on his body to remind him of his past trauma was even scarier. All of his past trauma was buried deep in his mind. If you don't have a scar on your body to remind you of your trauma, you might be able to push it deep down inside yourself. I've left him alone with my son, and my son loves him so much. Sears' whole family just watched Naruto and liked it. All of them were great at figuring out what kind of person someone was, and Naruto was a great person. The therapist nodded her head to show that she agreed. Humans are just as bad as us devils by nature, but Naruto is a good human who grew up without any love or help. He is a good person at heart because he is stable, but I'm afraid he could snap, and if he does, I don't see it being easy to stop him. The therapist was worried about what would happen if Naruto's bad experiences got so bottled up that they just exploded. They will not. The spinny death ball is a move that can grind, burn with friction, or blow up. The sharp spinny death ball is a technique that makes an infinite number of wind swords and puts them inside the spinny death ball. These wind swords cut through every single cell in the body. The frog slap destroys internal organs without caring about durability. The Make More Naruto's technique makes up to 1,000 copies of Naruto, giving him the power to change into other people. Even though he gives off a lot of energy, he has skills that help him stay out of sight. When they asked Naruto what he had learned as he grew up, the therapist began to list the skills Naruto had told them about. Sears was starting to figure out what was going on. That good with a sword, deadly with his fists, and knows senjutsu. He is faster than a knight, stronger than a rook, and has the stamina to fight for days if he wants to. If he gets hurt, he can heal faster than a devil and is strong enough to take a lot of damage. If he snaps Sears, he could kill all of us. The therapist started by sounding very worried, which made it clear how important this was. All of them could be killed by Naruto. He could change into anyone he wanted, and because he was so sneaky, they would never find him. He could be your friend, family member, or anyone else close to you, and he could kill you before you could blink. He could send 1,000 of his clones all over the underworld and have them blend in with the people there. They would kill and replace everyone as part of his killing spree if no one stopped him. No, Naruto wouldn't do that. No, he wouldn't do that, and he never would. He's a good person who loves life and cares about other people's lives, but what if he snaps? The therapist asked Sears this question. You said it yourself, he fooled you and Lord Ajuka with simple tricks. He could have killed you both without either of you putting up a fight. Are you sure that your power of destruction can kill him before he kills you? Sears wasn't blind. He inhaled deeply. No. I don't think I could kill him. If he loses it, he could kill me before I have enough magic to attack him, but I'm his friend. I won't let him lose it, and I believe in him. Sears could admit that they would all die if Naruto snapped. It could mean the end of their whole species. Those who lived would never know if they could trust their own families, and people would always be afraid to leave their homes for fear of being the next ones to die. The remaining devils would have to live in a place where they would rather be dead. He is like a ticking time bomb. What do you want us to do? Sears asked this question with a dark look on his face. We kill Gak. Like with Sharon when Kuroka killed her master, people were afraid that little Kaneko would become a murderer, so they decided to kill her. But because she was spared, she has been brave, loyal, and true to my sister. Naruto has the power to kill a lot of people, but I'm sure that even if he loses it, the love in his heart will bring him back. At this point, Sears had been with Naruto for a month. He wasn't blind. He could see that Naruto was the most dangerous person alive. If he wanted to kill you, you couldn't run or hide fast enough to keep him from finding you and killing you. Sears had a dream about it once, but that was it. Sears' nightmare. Gah. Searzex felt pain in his chest. The center of his body had been hit by Naruto's palm, and all of his organs were destroyed. He was bleeding a lot from his mouth, and the palm strike had hurt both his lungs and his heart. All around him were the dead people from his family. They were all dead. He woke up then. It's impossible to control him. We don't control our friends, and we don't need to control him. We rescue them from the darkness in their hearts. I won't leave Naruto alone or try to kill him. That's a stupid idea. Searzex threw the woman to the ground and let go of her neck as he did so. If they did try to kill Naruto, there's no reason to think that wouldn't be the thing that broke him. If he lost it before he found love to bring him back, then there was no hope for him. Therapy won't help him because he knows everything about his own heart. We can't make him look at himself in a different way because he knows himself better than most people. People who know they keep their feelings inside have a tighter lid on their darkness than anyone else. Therapy will only make him. The therapist was no longer there. Searzex had had enough. He put out his hand, and the woman and the wall behind her were both destroyed by his power of destruction. He didn't want to hear her anymore, but he knew what she would do. She would try to get people to back her up behind his back. She was scared for her own life and for everyone else's. Naruto can save us or kill us. You don't understand why I made our race worship his statue for so long. I wanted to help him come back to life, and I wanted everyone to love him. Your decision that he was too dangerous to live won't waste hundreds of years of hard work. Searzex had been preparing for this for a long time. He wanted to think that Naruto waking up from his statue form would be dangerous, so he did everything he could to make sure that whoever woke up from the statue would be loved and respected. One therapist was willing to pay any price, even if it meant taking his own life. You killed her. You watched all of that, right? Searzex saw Ajuka standing nearby. About one thing, she is right, we can't stop him. His skills are too good for killing, and he's too good at what he does for us to take advantage of their weaknesses. I don't even know how his chakra works, since he doesn't know everything about it, so my skills might as well not exist. Ajuka said this with a smile getting bigger on his face. Searzex smiled. That's right, if he goes crazy, we're all dead. So let's just give him the help he needs to stay calm. It seems like a pretty simple solution to me. Friendship is always better than any other choice. What Ajuka had just seen didn't bother him at all. He might have been hiding, but it was because he wanted to see what was going on. If he loses it, I already have a plan. What do you want to do? If you kill yourself to keep the two of us together, I'll make up for it with my life. You're making too much of it. Naruto was looked at by both Ajuka and Searzex. By the way, I heard everything she said, and she was right. There is a voice in my head that tells me to kill everyone, but I'm used to hearing voices like that, so it's not too hard to ignore it. Naruto said it offhand. You should have been around when Kurama was inside of me. He was always trying to get me to destroy everything. The real Kurama is a lot wilder than the fake Kurama. However, the visions could go away. Since the secret was out, Naruto said it. When, where, and how. The whole time Ajuka was hiding, he never even caught a glimpse of Naruto in the room. Searzex looked in every direction. I was a pen on the therapist's desk. What were you? A pen. Searzex didn't understand why the therapist was worried that if Naruto snapped, all the devils would go crazy from fear. He could be anyone or anything, and with his clones, he could be anywhere at the same time. If someone had a target on their back because of this guy, they would have to live their whole lives in fear of the idea that even the most common things could be Naruto. I mean. Yeah? Magic ninjas. They were kind of scary as hell. Okay, Lord Naruto. I need you to calm down. This magic will let me see all your memories from when you were human. It was the last day of therapy and the last counselor. He was going to try one last thing to get Naruto's memories to open. He was going to go directly into Naruto's memories and try to start them himself. By watching all of the memories, he could focus on the ones that Naruto couldn't remember because he couldn't remember them himself. It was Naruto's best chance of getting rid of the voices in his head. I'm relaxed. Naruto lay down next to the man who was lying down on the other side of him. The tops of their heads touched. Naruto didn't mind that a guy was going through his memories, since he himself could barely remember them. If you need me, Naruto, I'll be here. Searzex got a thumbs up from Naruto. Okay, Now take a few deep breaths and count down from 10 to 9 to 8 to 7 to 6 to 5 to 4. The Seersex watched the countdown. Wait, stop, maybe this is a bad idea. Naruto started to talk, but the therapist was still counting down, so both Naruto and the therapist fell asleep. Seersex watched. Inside the world of memory. It was lovely. When Naruto looked at the world, he saw a lot of love and hope, even from his earliest memories. But there was a problem. The therapist could only feel and see the world. He had planned for the memories to start when Naruto was born, but they started when he first learned how to use senjutsu. He was able to see all of Naruto's human memories because of the magic, but it seems that Naruto has forgotten about those memories. He had impressions of them, and he remembered his pain and what caused it, but he didn't really remember what happened. He went everywhere. It's so beautiful, she said. Naruto could feel life energy in the world that he had never been able to feel before. Naruto could feel how beautiful the world was through his eyes, his memories, and his ability to sense. Senjutsu. All life. He could feel every living thing in the whole country, from the smallest bug to the biggest animal. He could feel that the soil, the trees, and the air all had life. He could see how energy flowed around and through nature, going all the way through it without ever stopping the flow of the universe. As he became one with the universe, he could also feel the energy flowing through him. It was enlightenment. He felt like he had turned to stone, and this was the last thing he should remember. Naruto was no longer a person after this. He was made of stone, after all. But the memories didn't go away. Instead of showing up in Naruto's mind, he kept feeling everything that Naruto felt. Even though it was pitch black, he could see everything so clearly. The natural beauty that people who weren't part of nature couldn't see or capture with their eyes. No. I really shouldn't. Time began to move faster. Naruto's memories were the memories of the planet. He saw the memories of nature as he felt every death that happened all over the country. He felt the lives go back to nature, more lives start, and more lives end. He could sense and feel the beauty of the endless cycle of life and death. Years went by. All life ended. He could feel the moon and the natural energy that flowed through it hit Earth. He felt like all life had died at once, but the energy of nature was still there. Even if there was no life, the universe would still go on. Because of how it ended, life was both pointless and amazing. Even though no one was there to see it, time went on, and he was still one with nature. Even though the world was dark, he could still feel everything. Years. It had been so long that it was impossible to keep track. From nothing, a spark of life started to grow. Plants started to grow again, and nature began to get a golden color that shows it is alive. Watching life start on a planet was amazing and beautiful. It was too beautiful to be real, because he had lost his mind over the years in these memories. He was stuck in his memories, but that spark of life woke him up. It had been so long since he had used magic that he had forgotten how to stop it. For so long. He watched as the country he was in became full of life that kept growing and spreading. Nature fed itself, made things, and kept destroying itself. During storms, he could feel lightning strike trees and kill them. He could also feel when volcanoes blew their tops and killed everything, but then new life grew in their place. Everything was there. All of history, especially the parts they didn't know about. This was all there was. Life grew, bloomed, had babies, and then died. Years went by, and years after that. Life had really taken over the planet again, and during that time, billions of lives had come and gone. Every life, not just the big ones but also the little ones. He could feel so many lives in the bugs that it broke his mind. He could feel and track the lives of all of them. This beauty wasn't made for his mind. This is what happened. He was more than just a man. He was everything. He was a part of nature. He died as an adult. To stop living and become one with nature was what it meant to be a sage. It was to become both everything and nothing, to accept both infinity and emptiness. To move up to a higher level of not just power but also knowledge. So many years went by that it was pointless to try to count them anymore. This was going up. Again, life ended, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful to see death become part of the endless cycle of life, but this time some life had survived. Even though they were small, they were there. They were places where nature couldn't reach and the power of the universe couldn't mix. As the years went by and they moved, the sparks of life could be seen to grow and reproduce. How long has it been? He was who? He was all of the nature that was all around him. He was everything. He was everything and nothing at the same time. He was everything and nothing. No. You're not. Keep your mind. A voice spoke to him. Remember, you're not the sage Naruto. You're a demon. No, why would he want to be anything else but nature? To be a part of this cycle that never ends and watch over it all like a god. To be living history that would last until the end of time. He didn't remember anything. Why did he have to go through the pain that comes with being a man? He did nothing. In the end, he could no longer even feel the beauty. His mind just broke, and he could no longer think about anything but being a part of nature. He forgot everything, even the history he had seen. He did nothing but watch as time went by, as emotionless and broken as Naruto's memories from the time he spent in his statue prison. He didn't remember why he was here. Away from Naruto's memories. Searzex put his hand over his mouth as he watched the man's eyes lose their spark of intelligence and life. He saw how the man's face changed as he felt different things. His nose even started to bleed. He tried to wake up the man by touching him. It wasn't long. The memories of Naruto's past. So lovely. For Searzex, years and years went by. He saw the endless cycles of life and death as the universe around him turned a golden color. He could see things as Naruto did when he was a sage. Enlightenment. Searzex wanted to stop thinking and just enjoy this for the rest of his life. He wanted to stop being a man and become one with nature. He felt like giving up. Shinobi are people who never give up, because that's what it means to be one. I'm not gonna run away. I never break my promises. Away from Naruto's memories. Searzex made himself give up. He looked at the clock and saw that not even a second had gone by, but that second felt like a lifetime to him. Even though he had seen a lot of things fall, he could still see the beauty in it all. I'm crying, I said. Searzex felt tears drift down his cheeks. He died as an adult. He was one with everything and had seen everything. He had been through things that no one should be able to go through and still be alive. No one should be able to keep their mind together for so long. Naruto got through it. Naruto took it longer than anyone else, but he didn't give up. Naruto had stayed strong. Searzex fell to his knees and cried. He cried real tears because he knew how much pain Naruto had been through. Not just the pain, but also the beauty of being one with nature, but without letting nature take over. Naruto had to deal with the constant urge to just let his mind die and merge with everything. Naruto had stayed strong. Naruto had felt every life die and every life come into the world. The beginning of life and its end, from beginning to end, over and over again. Searzex. Searzex, are you okay? His wife, Graphia, ran to him when she saw that he was crying harder than he ever had before. His cries were full of so many different feelings that she had never heard anything like them from him before. He went through it all alone for so long. What? Graphia had concerns. He's looked at it. He's a sage. He's one with nature. He's been through everything. His mind never broke. He never gave up. Searzex had listened to Naruto tell them his story. This was having that story happen. He lived through a small part of what Naruto had lived through, and that was almost enough to make him give up everything. He almost forgot about his family, and he almost gave up on everything. The never-ending abyss, where he was trying to remember who he was and not become one with it. He was now a part of everything. The quiet. The quiet of nature as he watched everything from a distance, the beautiful quiet of being an observer to everything. He had moments of enlightenment, but he had to pull back because he was afraid of giving in. What are you talking? It's okay. It's okay. It's not okay. How did he do it? How did he take it all? Why did he do it? Why didn't he just give up? It would have been easy, and he would have been happy. Instead, he put himself through hell, an endless hell, because he had hope, because he wanted to breathe again. Searzex screamed and cried out as loud as he could. Naruto never gave up or gave in. Naruto never gave up. Naruto wanted to quit so many times and was tempted to quit so many times, but he never did. He never changed who he was, and he never changed the fact that he was meant to last. He put up with anything and everything. He felt the pain of every death he could sense, and it made him both happy and sad to see so many lives end. I've seen eternity. I was trying to. I was going to leave you. I felt like giving up on everything. I'm lucky. I'm glad I remembered to cut the cord. I stayed the same. Sears cried for himself as well as for Naruto. He didn't like what he had almost given into. Almost everything he cared about was gone. Naruto saved me. When I was about to give up, he called out to me. Naruto. He's going back to his hell just to get his memories back. Naruto made Sears cry more. Naruto was awake the whole time he had to watch himself in his own memories. He gave him help. In his memories, he tried to help both of them. He kept calling out to them so they wouldn't be hurt. Naruto had figured out that even though he was a statue, he might still be considered human, and that his memories might be among the ones that the magic would make them see. I'm sorry. I should have remembered Sage Mode sooner. I shouldn't have made any of you go through that. Naruto woke up and opened his eyes. Sears hugged Naruto. No, I'm sorry. You went through it all again. How did you handle it? How did you handle that never-ending hell? He had to ask because Sears had to know. He wanted to know how Naruto kept going even when it would have been easy to give up. He had to know the answer. Naruto smiled. Because that's the way I live, it's my nindo. I never give up. That was the end. Naruto stayed who he was because he could handle anything as long as he had hope and a strong will. He never gave up, and that was what set him apart. But that wasn't the most important thing about him. There were a lot of people who said they would never give up, and there were a lot of people who believed them. Naruto was unique. His heart never stopped. Because of his never-ending love, he could really say that he never gave up. He'd die smiling for his friends, and he'd take on the whole world by himself to protect one person. Even though his memories were getting worse and he couldn't remember his friends, he still loved them so much that he didn't want to give up on them. He kept the love he had for them and the history of their lives alive in his heart. Thank you, Naruto, he said. Sears? Grafia was confused and asked. What for? Thank you for being born. Thank you for going through all that pain and suffering. Thank you for being my friend. Thank you for being a part of my life. Sears put his arms around Naruto as tightly as he could. He wanted to show everything with his body. He wanted Naruto to feel what he was saying. He was completely honest. Even a devil like him could get a blessing like this. Being able to know the man in front of him. He was a sofa. It was going to be a funny joke, something that would make him laugh. He asked Sears not to tell anyone that his therapy was over and that he was now in the human world. He would start classes in 2 days. So everyone just thought that Naruto and the others were still in the underworld. They don't even know I'm here, she said. He was the couch where Kaneko and Asia were sitting while Asia told Rias about how her last job with Kaneko had gone. No one had the slightest idea that Naruto was actually the couch they were sitting on. That he could feel them through his couch-like exterior, that he could feel their butts. He didn't give this much thought. The turn into things temporary name technique was great for sneaking into places, but it was also great for sneaky jokes that he could pull off at any time. He could feel every tiny part of the curves in their buttocks. Kaneko's ass was smaller and rounder, but it was actually softer than Asia's ass because of her strong muscles. At the same time, Asia's ass had more fat, so it was bigger and felt cooler. It wasn't as soft as Kaneko's ass, but that didn't mean she had a hard ass. It had a different kind of softness. He hadn't given this joke enough thought. If they found out it was him, he was so going to get punched for letting them sit on him for so long. He would have to change his prank because it was a surprise that hadn't happened yet. When I tried to take a bath with Issei, he told me men are wolves. A classmate told me that skin-to-skin contact is a sign of a healthy relationship. Oh? It's more common between girls than between guys and girls, or at least between guys and guys in human society. Skinship is a very common thing in our culture. Rias didn't mind if she or anyone else in her peerage got naked and kissed. In her culture, being naked wasn't nearly as important as it is in ours. She turned the pages in the reports from her brother, and she smiled when she saw that Naruto had finished his therapy. When he transferred to their school, he would be in the human realm in 2 days. This gave her 2 days to get ready and think about what she should do next. When Naruto showed up out of the blue, she tried to show him how important she was, but she failed. At least Naruto made a good impression on her group. That gave him a little more respect than the way she told them about him. Only the girls were in the room. Yuto was helping Issei learn how to use his sacred gear on her orders, so the boys had to leave the room. She could help Issei herself, but since he was a pervert, she didn't want Naruto to get the wrong idea about what it could mean for her to spend more time with him. Issei was a good boy underneath his desires, and she would have liked to play a bigger role in teaching him right from wrong. Rias loved to train and to teach her peers how to train. She loved getting results from training, and the harder the training, the better the results. She didn't train a lot on her own, but she did learn how to use her power of destruction correctly and some basic magic. She was born with a great body, so strength training didn't do much for her. Instead, she focused on simple exercises that were good for her health. Akeno, Yuto, and Kaneko were all stronger than she was physically, but she was still stronger in combat than all of them at the moment because of her magic. In battle, she was a power wizard type, but she didn't have any support skills yet. Oh. Asia seemed sad about the fact that she had done something wrong. The couch was Naruto. Issei is lucky, this is a nice butt, but I need to pay attention. How can I prank them without them knowing it was me? Naruto thought about his situation, which he thought was pretty bad. Most of the time, when he was in a go-with-the-flow kind of mood, he didn't think these kinds of things through all the way. Just take off your clothes and sleep with him. The rest of the work will be done by him. Kaneko's idea wasn't for Asia and Issei to have sex, and even though it was weird, she only said it to end the conversation. She didn't care about the talk about love lives because she didn't want to think about Issei naked if she didn't have to. Even though she didn't want many people to think that way about her, it was bad enough that she was sure Issei thought about all of them naked all the time. Even though it was nice to be liked, the fact that most of the people who liked her were perverts didn't do much to boost her confidence. It just made her think that crazy perverts were the only ones who could be interested in her body. When perverts are the only ones who tell you how hot you look, it doesn't make you feel any better. I could never do that. I mean, not now. Part of Asia wanted to know how much she wanted to do it, so she corrected herself. She was the only one who liked Issei, so she just wanted him to tell her. Rias, Akeno, and Kaneko did not seem to be interested in the boy. All the girls at school didn't like the boy, so she knew she had time to get him to notice her as a woman. The couch was Naruto. He was listening to the whole secret conversation right now, and the longer it went on, the more he realized that this wasn't a good idea for him. He liked bad ideas like this, and he was good at getting himself out of these kinds of trouble. The couch doesn't feel the same. It feels better than usual. Kaneko noticed because the couch seemed to be much better. She could feel that it was firm and soft in all the right places. It was much better than her usual couch, which was worn down from years of use. It looked like a brand new couch. She pushed her behind further into the couch to make it even more comfortable, and she leaned back to enjoy it even more. Really? Rias got up from her chair and walked over to the couch. She sat down between herself and Asia, next to Kaneko. The couch was Naruto. Rias's ass was much bigger because her hips were wider, and it felt very different than either Asia's or Kaneko's. Rias worked out, but not as much as Kaneko, so her ass didn't feel as soft and muscled as Kaneko's. Instead, it was all subcutaneous fat with a good base for size. It wasn't as soft as Asia's butt, but it wasn't as hard as Kaneko's either. It was bigger and softer at the same time. It was more elastic, which made it feel like there was more to grab, without making it look bad because it had more fat. You're right, it does feel better than usual. Rias yelled as she sat down on the couch and rubbed her behind against it to get more comfortable. The couch was Naruto. Kaneko was sitting on his face, Rias was sitting on his chest, and Asia was sitting on his waist. That was the only way he could at least feel it against his body. It was strange to have 3 girls sit on him while they rubbed their behinds all over his body. He was a couch potato. Naruto was used to changing into weapons, rocks, dogs, other people, and anything else he could get away with. He was very good at acting like what he was acting like. He was in a different kind of life-changing situation because his joke was turning against him. That's comfortable, huh? As she set her tea tray down and sat down on the other side of Asia, Akeno asked. Akeno had the biggest ass, but it was also the softest and had the least give. It had the least amount of muscle and the most fat. Her behind was like an elastic pillow that didn't give easily and always went back to its original shape. Instead of being soft like muscle, it was soft like a marshmallow. It was a little bit cooler and a little bit bigger than Rias's buttocks, but the muscles that were there had been there for years. This ass was different because it was built on a foundation of muscle training from childhood. It was the ass of a sadist, a woman who could suffocate a man and kill him with her ass. Kaniko's behind was like an athlete's behind. Asia's ass was the ass of someone who spent a lot of time outside in the sun. Rias's behind looked like that of a girl who did basic training to stay in shape but also came from a good family. Akino's ass had great genes and was trained well in his early years to give him a good base for maso-sadism. The athlete, the average girl, the seducer, and the pervert. This is so much better than usual that I feel like I'm smothering someone. Naruto was a couch, and couches don't have dicks. However, Akino was putting her ass on Naruto's dick to cover it up. Only because he was a couch kept him from getting very rock hard right now. He had 4 girls rubbing themselves on him at the moment, and he knew he would get in trouble if he turned back to normal and told them about the prank. The joke was to change back and make everyone scared. His joke went wrong because now he couldn't go back without being called a huge super pervert. It took all of his willpower not to drop the transformation because he was so aroused by the situation and could actually feel the different types of underwear they were wearing. Asia was wearing innocent, Akino had a thong that was barely there, Kaniko had on side-tie pants, and Rias was going see-through because the fabric around her butt was thin. The couch was Naruto. Naruto stayed on the couch until late at night, when everyone had gone home. Only then did he stop changing and put the original couch back in place. He never let himself change back, not even when asses were rubbed all over his body for 8 hours. Joke didn't work. He'd try again the next day.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.